Welcome. Kicking it with Coach K podcast. This is episode 22. I am your host, Coach K. In the house with us is Coach Martin. How are you today, Coach?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm ready for Dead Week to be over. We just talked about that a little bit, but I'm ready. I'm ready to get back to work. So
me too.
Before we dive in, we got some questions for you today. We want to hear some of your perspectives, some of your takes on different things, whether it be coaching, real life perspectives on different things as it relates to student athletes and coaching. And then just hear a bit about your story, right? So I think it's always cool to hear different experiences, triumphs, obstacles, all them different things that go in. And then again, it's for young coaches or just any coach out here, even not just young coaches, but even somebody, we can learn from each other, right? So even somebody like myself, I learn a lot from you on a daily basis. Coach Poe, all the coaches that I'm around, I purposefully surround myself with people like that, right? But so I think knowing your story kind of tells us a little bit about you too, right? And where them perspectives come from.
Yep.
So before we get started, this show is brought to you by Brain Jerk Entertainment, Kennedy Health and Wellness. Welcome to the Brain Jerk era. Love these guys. Appreciate everything they do. The podcast network is growing. The newest podcast, Got Your Six. I've watched the first few episodes of that. That's getting better each time. That's an incredible new podcast that these guys have started for those veterans, military people in that field. Of course, we got Boss Talk with my guy Jeff and Tino. Shout out to them guys. Light It Up with Josh. There's all types of stuff. Pillar Talk with all them guys. So make sure you guys tune in. There's basically a podcast every single day of the week. There might even be a couple on a day. Where these guys just always have some kind of content going out for people in all different lanes. They also obviously have various events, from comedy shows to dining events to all types of stuff, whether it's for you and you or your spouse and your family. They've got something for every situation, every experience for everyone. Make sure you go on their Facebook and Instagram page. They share a lot of their events on their Facebook page. They share a lot to their Instagram page as far as the podcast. And when they're out at events, they're good at sharing reels and different things when they're out at events. So you can kind of see what those experiences are like and know when they're coming up. Also, Kennedy Health and Wellness, your one-stop shop. Everything wellness from body care to candles. Shout out to my wife. She obviously handles that side of the business, but this show is brought to you by Kennedy Health and Wellness. We are actually at Krepp's Apple Barn, which is opening on Thursday. This will be our third year in a row at Krepp's. Everybody knows that's kind of where we started our business, that in the Village Market, of course, but it's amazing to be back out there. The barn is growing every year. Just a great place to take your family, come out, enjoy some quiet time, whatever you're looking for. So make sure you stop out to Krepp's Apple Barn. Open on Thursday. We have to show some love to our sponsors of the show today. We have several sponsors of this show, pillars in our communities. We actually have a new sponsor today that we'll announce here at the end, and we want to give a little bit of love to a couple of our sponsors throughout here. So Amaya's Fresh Mexican Grill, Little Brown Jug, Lane's Pizzeria, IWR, Muggsy Sports Grill and Bar, Monroe Sports Center Bowling, Nerdy Designs. I got to shout out John Drake. Our new podcast poster is incredible. He took that picture from the All-Star game and he made an awesome poster out of it. I think it's one of the best he's ever done. So shout out to you, John. I'm not just saying that because they can see it in the background. That's right. I forget you guys can actually see that. That poster is incredible. Thank you, John Drake. Shout out to Nerdy Designs. Make sure you guys get a hold of him for any of your business needs or any of your advertising needs, sports, whatever it is, not just business. Make sure you reach out to him. He's the best at what he does. All Hard Athletics, they have their annual end of the year sale or end of the season sale, right, where they get rid of all last year's stuff or last year's t-shirts and that. That's on July 15th. Make sure you stop out to All Heart. Monroe County Sports Network, 1817 CrossFit, Big Back Prep, and our newest sponsor, Back Road Baggers. Sorry. So it's been a few weeks, Coach, since I've been on a podcast. So we also just want to take a minute to kind of refresh everybody's memory. It's been a few weeks. Our sports performance class is continuing every Saturday at noon to 1, 1817 CrossFit, the location. Make sure you come get some work in. It's open for any sport, so it'll benefit any sport. We're working on strength, conditioning, durability, speed, agility, change of direction, all them different areas that you need to develop as an athlete. Mindset, that's another big one we like to add in there, but that's noon to 1 on Saturdays. Flag Football League and camp kicked off. Our Flag Football League kicked off on Friday. It was up and down as expected when you first do something for the first time, right? Or when you do something for the first time, you expect to have them things that kind of go right and them things that you want to build on and kind of fix when you go in. Our football camp is this Friday. So we have 60 kids signed up. And I just want to mention this because we're still actually looking for a defensive back coach and a defensive line or offensive line coach. I have a guy now who can work with either group. He's willing to work with the opposite. So whichever one, whoever comes in. So we're still looking for a few coaches. Again, that's at Hellenberg Park. We got 60 kids signed up for that. Should be a great camp. Our volleyball camp with Coach Brooke and Coach Riley will be on July 22nd. The registration is closing for that this week. So we're going to blast that again. Each time we've posted it, we've gotten a surge of signups. So we're going to post that again. Probably tomorrow, I'm going to throw that up again. Make sure you get signed up fast. The MCOP and the Opportunity Center would like to have the registration closed for T-shirts, and so we can plan things out. So make sure you guys get signed up, and we can talk a little bit more about that as we go. Quote of the day: it's not the will to win that matters. Everyone has that. It's the will to prepare to win that matters. And that's by Coach Paul Bear Bryant. We are two coaches sitting here, and Coach Pose, who is up here as well, who's been on the show, and the people we surround ourselves with. I firmly believe we're all truly believers in separation is in preparation. I truly believe that we all are, how do I say this? Obsessed with the details and doing things the right way in a routine, right? And I think that gets lost with some teams and people, and that's why they falter. And I think with you, with Allen Park Volleyball, with passion, I think it's all I think you guys, everybody wants to win, right? I talked about that with Coach Harris when he was on, but you guys do the things that you're supposed to do year in, year out, day out, without any setback. Well, shouldn't say that. Without any regression from the effort, right? Yep. That's how I should put that. Yep. And that's why I chose that quote of the day. It's always got to relate to you, Coach, or whoever we have on. So I thought it fit your program and what you guys do. In our book or our read of the week is Chop Wood, Carry Water by Josh Medcalf. Again, just reiterating details, how to win at the small battles and do things over and over again. Not going to go into a bunch of detail on that book, but make sure you check that out. Chop Wood, Carry Water. Not a super long book. You can read that in if you read for 20 minutes a day, you can probably read it in 3 days, 4 days. So knock that book out. Make sure you go check it out. Coach, tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. I'm Coach Brooke. I am the head varsity coach at Allen Park High School, and I'm also a head coach at Passion Volleyball Club, which is also in Allen Park. I'm married now to another coach who coaches at Concordia, and I'm also a special education teacher at Ypsi Lincoln.
Shout out for all of that. Shout out to Coach Poe as well. Once again, we love you, Coach. But that's awesome. So your calling, and this is in my questions today. So your calling, it really is teaching, right? And I mean that teaching is what Coach Cersei, shout out to Coach. He gets a shout out every week on here, but he always used to say that at the end of the day, coaches are just teachers, and we're teaching life like teachers are supposed to. We're teaching, but instead of always teaching grades necessarily or history, we're teaching sports, right? But we're teachers. And I think that's your calling. You're somebody who truly embodies that. So a little bit though, how did Passion get started? Because I don't even know how Passion got started.
I graduated from Allen Park in 2017, and around that time, there was not a lot of club volleyball happening in the Downriver area. There was Michigan Elite going on. There was a few other local programs. And then after that, it kind of died out. So there wasn't really a competitive opportunity for girls to go on and play.
Right. And not to interrupt you, but how many girls? I mean, this is a lot of kids downriver and not a whole lot of girls on these teams, right?
So when they first started, which Chris Bosman, big shout out to him. Yep. He created Passion Volleyball, and he was the head coach at Allen Park for about 12 years. And he created Passion to give girls that opportunity to play higher level volleyball, but stay local so that they didn't have to make those drives out to Wixom, Warren, Novi, all those places to go out and play. So that was created. And originally when it started, they had one team. They had a little bit more girls than what you would normally carry on the team for the first year. But then after that, it continued to grow. And then they had 2 teams, and then last year we had 3 teams.
So and at that point, you're meaning, like, just for the people listening, this is when you start splitting by age, right? This is when you start to see like a 12 or a 13U or a 14U or 12 through 13 or whatever.
Exactly. So they started, I can't remember exactly the age group, but and now we have split off. Last year we had a 15, a 17s, and an 18s, and this year we're looking to have close to a pretty some full teams with 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. We're looking to see what we can do. Yes, what we can do where we're still going to be able to keep it competitive and have, good athletes in the program. And
now, why do you think that is? Why, elaborate on, like, why do you think you guys have been so successful at growing that? And we'll get to Allen Park and all that in a minute as far as like that but why has this been so successful at growing?
I think it's always kind of been a thing in Downriver, like the struggle of trying to find somewhere to play as someone maybe looking to play at the next level. And looking to play just competitive, high level, high IQ volleyball. So
definitely,
I think that's been a big part of it. And it kind of started pretty easily, I think, with that sense, because there was already a group of girls that knew they wanted to play at that level. And then really social media has been a huge part of growing them. Facebook, Instagram,
being good at branding.
And luckily, like, our coaching staff, a big part too has been that we all coach. And we've all coached together. So Chris was, like I said, coached at Allen Park, and now he's the JV coach. And then I'm the varsity coach. Amelia, she's our freshman coach.
Shout out.
Yep, shout out to her. She's awesome. A great coach. Yep. And then we have a few other people that we have coached with as well that have played under Chris or that have played passion volleyball too. So they've played in passion and now they've coached. So that has been really good because we've been able to translate everything because it's the same group of people. So
see, that's got to be something on a deep level though, like to get somebody to, like, that played for you guys to want to come back and, like, for all this to stay connected, it's got to be like the people here are really doing the things the right way. You know what I mean? You guys have really built
it's so easy to fall off too. I feel like, after a season's done, it's like, oh, like
complacency.
So we have a really special group where we stick around and we're always together. So, and we have tryouts July 17th and July 24th, 5 to 7 at Taylor Sportsplex. If anyone's looking to play some competitive volleyball for the travel season.
When we get to the end of the show, repeat that once more. Yeah,
right
at the end, before links, because right at the end we do links and all that. Right before you drop any links you want to drop for passion or whatnot, make sure you mention that at the end again.
Definitely.
Because that's definitely. And just to piggyback off of that, and I'll make it quick, but we in Monroe, we need more, right?
Yeah.
And I think if you can make the drive, which it's really not that bad. I know everybody thinks it is because they're like, you go to Allen Park twice a week to train, and I'm like, yeah, it's 30 minutes, and then I drive to football like 24. So, like, what do you mean? Like, it's not that much different,
And we've been growing too.
30 minutes to me is not.
Exactly. And we've had girls now, like last year we had 2 girls from New Boston Huron.
Okay.
And
so
we actually had someone driving from Pinckney last year. So that was pretty far.
Right.
Someone that went to school at Mercy. So that's.
But again, this is for people that are really looking to be pretty good at this.
Yeah,
to really elevate their game.
We look for typically like the best of the best that come to our tryouts, and that's important to us, is keeping it where we're not going to create a team for creating a team for numbers. We want to create a team that we know is going to be successful.
100%.
So.
And if you're still looking to grow, I would say to anyone listening, because I know there'll be, we've had Riley on, we've had you on, we had Coach Harris, or we're having you on. We have Coach Harris on, who works with a lot of volleyball players, as far as the mobility and training thing. And so we do get a decent, amount of fans or followings at times in those areas. And I think just anybody in this area who's looking and who might be really good, because I watched. So when I first went to Mason, right, I wander in the gym that fall, and because when I first come home, I want to be at the basketball game, the volleyball game, the baseball. I'm trying to be at everything. I'm just that kind of guy.
Yep.
And eventually I want to be an AD or a head coach type of deal. So you need to be around at everything. You need to start getting used to that stuff now.
Yeah.
But I know there's even a couple people at Mason that I was like, we're a small school, and if you were to take an opportunity like that,
yep,
and capitalize on it, like it could potentially really elevate you to a different place that maybe just school ball. And I'm not hating on school ball at all by any means. Like, definitely play your school sport and represent, but that stuff might be good for a couple athletes in Monroe County that could reach out and
that
use
would be awesome too, because we want to get more athletes in, from Monroe or from other areas, especially like you said, you hop on 75 and right off the exit.
Far,
so it's a really easy drive to get there, and again, great people, great community, very tight knit. So it's always a blast.
I love it. And the Passion have been very successful, very, very successful. And I do think, just to piggyback off of that, what you were saying earlier, and we'll wrap up the Passion or this part of it on that. But I do think you guys brand very, very well. You guys do a great job at making the program cool, right? And I think that's super important now. Now, the last thing I want to ask for anybody who's like, that sounds fun, or, I might be able to do that. So who do you guys compete against, or like, where will you guys go? What will you guys do as far as that goes?
So typically we participate in the leagues that run. It's like the Lake Erie Power League, and it's like typically in the club level. So there's typically like club, premier, and open. So there's a bunch of different levels. So we typically play there, and then we also go and compete in Sandusky, Grand Rapids.
Oh wow! Okay.
This year we went to Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. Previously we've gone to Las Vegas. So we do like one FAR tournament kind of thing, where it's not too much, where we're traveling every weekend going to Florida or going to all these crazy places.
But you do get to experience something.
And Sandusky is always a fun one to play at, because it's like at Cedar Point.
Everybody
area.
Loves that. Even Pennsylvania, somewhere close.
Yeah,
but
it's so fun.
Not Pittsburgh, like, and you and I, like, so when we train with the girls, when they come back, they're hyped about it. It's like a crazy great life experience for them. Like, they come home, they're like, we ate at this place and we had this, and it's like, okay, they're going to remember that for the rest of their life.
100%. And even, sometimes where we have those struggle moments where maybe, we didn't have a good day, and we're all the way out in Pittsburgh, they're so close knit that they still make it a fact to go out and have dinner together, or like hang out at the hotel together. Like, we've always had great groups of kids and families, so that's
why you
been
guys
a great
are successful.
Help. Yeah,
that's awesome though.
Yep.
And that's the most successful thing you can say, win or lose.
Yep.
What you just said, lose, still be able to go out as a family and do it, because a lot, of teams
they're done.
I mean,
you
know what it is. It becomes finger pointing, right?
Yeah,
like, you
100%.
did this, you did that. No, this game's your fault, or it's finger pointing at us as coaches, right? It's like, it's coach, you called the wrong plays, that type of thing. But no, that's incredible. So we went back to earlier, we said coaching and teaching is a calling. I really feel like for a lot of us, that's how some of us kind of fall into it, but for a lot of us, it's a calling. So how did coaching start for you? Like, when did it start?
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, I graduated from Allen Park in 2017. I was recruited to play college volleyball, and my plan was to go play in Ohio.
Okay.
I went down there, I was ready to go. And within about 3 days, I had my stuff packed up and I was moving back to Allen Park. I literally moved in and then moved out.
From the school in Ohio?
Yep. So it was almost like day to day. It was very quick.
What out of curiosity, what changed so fast?
And this was important for me too. Like, when we talk about this for the college recruiting aspect, I kind of settled for somewhere. It was the recruiting experience is daunting, especially if you don't know what it's like, especially like downriver or Monroe area. It's not, we're not
the biggest thing in the world.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's not heard of a lot. Maybe nowadays it is a little bit more.
Yeah.
But it was very daunting, and I was like, okay, I'll go here. This looks fine. But then I got there and I was like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? Like, this is not where I belong.
That makes sense.
So I came back that first year, and I know Riley kind of talked about this. I had a very hard time. I actually hated volleyball for an entire year.
Yeah.
I did not want to look at it. I couldn't watch it. Poe would turn it on and I'd be like, turn off the TV. I don't want to watch it. Like,
so this was after you left Ohio and came home.
Yep.
You developed so out of curiosity, why did that happen? Like, was it just, damn it didn't work out the way it was supposed to type of anger? I was supposed to play college ball and this didn't work where I want, like, is that
and I think so. And I think like when we had a very successful high school season with Chris as our coach. We went 13-0 our last year. We did phenomenal playing against competitive teams. So by far, like one of, a few of the best years at Allen Park. So I think there was just always that expectation for me, not even for myself, but people expected me to go somewhere and play. So I think that was more devastating that.
So almost what literally like almost akin to what Riley said.
Exactly.
Like, that's kind of how she felt like she.
Exactly.
And shout out to Riley because she's probably listening to this. I know she tunes in and supports the podcast. But yeah, she kind of had that same. Yeah. She said, I kind of felt like I let people down, and this is what was expected of me.
Yeah. So after that, I came home, and like I said, I had a really hard time. And then about a year passed, and Chris was like, "You got to come back in the gym. I don't care when it is. Come back in the gym. Come volunteer. Hang out with the girls. Help us out with the coaching aspect." And thank God for that. Because
so he persuaded you.
He persuaded me to just get back in the gym and experience it again, and from a different side. Angle. Exactly. So if I wouldn't have had that, I wouldn't be around. So
you know what? That's awesome though that he was able to at least show you that there's another glass to our glass half full to this situation. Still, there's another side, and to Riley, because Riley wants to get into coaching now after and had that same, it's like, this is cool because she's obviously, she's obviously younger, right? Yeah. She just graduated. She's just going through what you went through before. So I think to see somebody who found, a lot of success with the passion, with Allen Park, with happiness in the sport, more importantly, like wanting to come back year after year and be a part of the game. I think for her to see that is super, super cool. And not just her, but other people who, will be in maybe not the exact situation, but similar. So and that's incredible.
There's so many kids that don't go play college sports, and that
95%.
Exactly. That still love the game and want to be a part of it, and they don't know how. So I know you guys were talking about with Riley too, totally recommend coaching or, even playing in adult leagues. There's so many adult tournaments for volleyball.
I'm not, because I watched it and it's too fast. I'm just playing, but I have watched some of that and I'm like, that looks like a pull this and I work out and whatnot, but I'm like, that volleyball looks fast.
Yes. So
I'm a little old for that movement.
Yeah. There's a lot of different options out there. So for the people that are experienced that, there's always that coaching aspect, but there's also the opportunity to still play if you want. So it's out there.
Definitely. No, I think that's incredible. And I think so, like, and I talked to Riley about this. It's hard because we need knowledgeable coaches, but we also just need like good people.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the hard line, because you end up wanting to bring people on your staff sometimes, or especially in football when you need like 7 people on each staff to be like, have eyes everywhere. And it's like, you want to, how do I say this nice? Like you want to have knowledge, but you also want to at times just be like, you know what, we'll just learn the game, because at least you'll have the kids in structure. They'll relate, whatever the case is. Right. And I think like, even if it's somebody who necessarily didn't have this all-star Division I high school career, if you were just an average player, I think if you had high character, high morals, I think you're the type of coaches we need, and you can develop your knowledge of the game as time goes.
100%.
As long as you know the basics, right? Like as long as you know how to master basics, you can learn the extensives of the game as you go. You don't have to be an all-star.
Yeah, and that's a really like for Allen Park, that is a big part. That like a lot of our coaches have their own stories with volleyball. So like we had G who played at Minot State.
I heard she was a beast though.
So she was.
Coach Harris said she was a beast.
She came from Romulus, which was for them. Volleyball wasn't as big for them. Okay. So and then she went out and played at Minot State, and that was a little bit of a shock playing, higher division volleyball. And then we have Katie, who was at Henry Ford and went to Madonna.
Okay. I didn't know
so
that.
she experienced the transfer. Wow. So they all kind of have their different stories. And then, Amelia, who played at Allen Park and played at Passion. And then Emily, who assists her, who played at Allen Park and played at Passion too. So there's all of these different stories that we've been able to connect with, which has made us a very diverse group.
And the amazing part about that is it doesn't, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't even seem like it was planned that way. It seemed like it was just supposed to happen that way, and that's how it came together.
Yeah, all the pieces fall into place. So.
Right, and I'm a guy who and I don't care to say it, but it's I'm a guy who believes in God and believes in the work of the Lord, right? So I believe when things like that come together, it's like, wow, what a blessing to have this all come in sync like this. You know what I mean? It's an incredible thing. And just so the people listening know, like, I've been around these coaches in this group now for I mean, I've known you for, we coached in the COVID year, so 3-4 years now, right? And we've been working at Allen Park for a couple now, and like everything you are saying is 100% true, and it really is like such a in sync program that and the one great thing about that, and I'll just end this on that, is like when you miss, or when any coach misses, or when I missed training the other day, nothing, it's just a well-oiled machine. Everything just goes, right? It's just well-oiled, like nothing. And that's not to say that we don't have value. But it's to say that the value we've instilled, whatever our positions are, from head coach all the way down to assistant, all the way, it's just, we've instilled that type. You guys have built that type of program and then brought the people in to help you build that. It's incredible. Really. It's well oiled.
And it's hard to, be full-time teacher, getting my master's degree that's at the same time, coaching Allen Park, coaching Passion. A lot of the times it intertwines and happens at the same time. We were just getting married.
I was just about to say, and then life.
Yes.
Right? Like
so
you can't stop life.
Towards the end of the Passion season, I think I missed, 1 or 2 practices, and Katie just picked it right up and kept going. Or, we've all had things happen and where we just kind of pick up where everyone leaves off. So
100%. And then tell me about this challenge. Coaches football in the fall. Volleyball happens in the fall. So now you're trying to balance supporting him and getting it's not just supporting when you can through, hope game goes well today, whatever, but even actually trying to be there from time to time. And that's got to be a whole nother challenge.
It is difficult because a lot of the times for us, we run Sunday through Thursday. So my days off are Friday and Saturday, which are good because that's his game time. Better, right? But it's also like, oh my gosh, I have 2 days of silence, and like, do I want to go to a
to the football game?
But
and then you get the weather that starts getting rough later.
But there are also times where we have tournaments on Saturdays, so it's like we're constantly going. And I think this year we don't have a Saturday off until mid-September. Like, we have a tournament. I think we have 2 in the same week in August, and then we have the one the next weekend, the next weekend.
So that takes away a lot of Saturdays too.
But a lot of the times where we find support too in each other is doing this stuff in the off season. Like he went to Cincinnati recently, so trying to help where that is, or even go sometimes with them to just travel.
Trip,
so that's kind of how we make it work.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a busy time.
I get that for sure. I mean, not to that degree. Obviously, Meg doesn't coach, but with her running a business, that's kind of like we run business. Some of our businesses in Frankenmuth, right? Mm-hmm. So by nature, it's like, well, if we're on a business trip to drop our supply off, we have a vendor partner up there and we wholesale sell them product, right? And it's like, if we're going up there, let's just take the day to spend some family time,
get dinner, do something.
Do what you can when you can do it, and kind of mix it in. And shout out to Coach Parker at UT, formerly at Rouge, but shout out to Coach. I kind of took that when I was a younger coach and learning at Romulus and at Wayne, and just kind of watching the older guys in this game and the older coaches. I learned that from him a lot. He was a guy who I saw whatever he was doing, he always tried to make sure somehow he either made it home that night or involved his kids in something that day to make sure that they were involved in that experience. And Coach P, Coach Parker, if you're watching, my man, shout out to you for that, because I appreciate that lesson big time. Coach, who did you, and I ask this question a lot because to keep it short, our kids, this is the era of this, right? And whether we want to accept it or not, they idolize people more than ever. And we idolize people growing up. And I've had people on here say, no, I didn't really, but the majority of us had idols when we were growing up, whether it was sports, outside of sports. Who did you look up to growing up in your life in general?
Yeah, so I think there was always Chris. Again, shout out to him.
Yeah, that's amazing.
He definitely played a different role, like as a coach.
Right.
I never thought I would be working alongside him and consider him a friend.
Special,
I always
though.
saw him as coach. So
special.
That was always someone I had the utmost respect for, especially for just balancing volleyball and balancing life. And
Right.
Even when I came home from Ohio, he was like, "Why didn't you call me?" And like, let me know. So definitely him. In the world of volleybable, the Bedford head coach. She's a beast. She's awesome.
She's still there today.
Yep, she's been there for a very long time.
Okay.
She's awesome. And for me too, especially being a little bit more of a recent high school grad, I guess you could say, at least in the last 10 years. Geez, that sounds rough. But, social media was still so big for us too. And we were kind of that turnaround with like Instagram got popular in like 2012 or whatever that was. But
that stuff was just kind of starting when I was in high school.
For us, it was kind of like the prime of it.
Pulling our phone out and trying to get on MySpace at the end tail there, and like Facebook when it first started.
Yep. So a lot of it too for me was like following like the USA Volleyball group.
Okay.
Definitely. It's so fun to watch then, and just swiping through,
competitive too.
Like seeing that every single day, it kind of gave you something to strive for or look at. So that was a big inspiration too.
So, and it could be the same as a couple of them you just named. And obviously Coach Boz is close to that area, but who would you recommend today that are like, give me a couple people in our world who you think kids should look up to today?
I'm trying to think here. That's a good one.
I put people on the spot with this one. I do. Because a lot of times you can go at it from just pure leadership angles. You can go at it from sports angles, athletes. And I ask it because, again, our kids, they watch this, they listen, whether sometimes we'd like them to listen a little bit more, maybe at times, but there's also an aspect of every kid that does listen and observe. They're very smart. Kids are smart.
Yeah, for sure.
And if they hear us say somebody enough to listen to, they will go on Instagram and they will type that person's name.
100%.
That's why I'm a big advocate of sharing. I share a lot of faces and people because I'm like, go listen to these people.
Yeah.
Because these are the people you should listen to.
So someone who I recommend taking a look at, she played at Texas Volleyball. Her name's Zoe Fleck. She was their libero last year and they won the national championship. She's a wonderful advocate for like mental health, kind of finding your zen, balancing life, like we were just talking about. She's a Division I athlete at the best program in the country,
100%.
and still found ways to balance working out, training, academics, all of these things. And she shows that a lot on her Instagram. And she does camps now, and she seems like a very wonderful person from the screen.
Right.
But how she portrays herself is someone who I would definitely say take a look at. And another one on that team was Logan Eggleston, who now she is also playing. Well, she's playing professionally, which Zoe Fleck is too. But they both together were great college athletes, but it seemed like they're great human beings that wanted to show how to balance life and balance volleyball and all the things that are happening when you're in college, because it's definitely a big change. So there are definitely two people I would say take a look at.
I love that because it's a necessary message, right?
Yeah.
Like nowadays more than ever, and I'm not saying this in a negative way, but we have a hard time in society today, just in general, for a lot of reasons, with handling things and handling a lot of responsibility and pressures. And I see a lot of posts every day just on my timeline of like, my mental capacity is done today type of deal. I see that like a lot,
Me
right?
too.
And I'm like, and I'm over here like, I feel you, but I got to keep going. I'm like, but I got to go to the next practice.
Yeah.
But I see it a lot, and I think it's due to a lot of reasons that I'm not going to dive. That could take hours and hours, but I think it's an important message now on how to mentally handle all this stuff that you have going on, and how to do that. And I think, I'm a big advocate on this too. So I think you have to know where you are and who you are.
Yeah.
So for me, like you might see me share somebody more like a Tim Grover, who's more like the guy who's going to tell you to be obsessed and to do it 24/7 and don't think about the Kobe type of, and that's because when it comes to certain things, that's how I like to be. I like to, even we just talked about it, I like my fun to be mixed into my business and my football. I like my daughter to come to the field with me. I'm a very obsessive individual when it comes to this. And then I think there's other people who are not like that. And I think you have to understand, and neither of them are right or wrong. I'm not saying that, but you have to know who you are and where you are, right? There's people that work 9 to 5s that go on 2-3 vacations a year. They got a good job. They got, beautiful kids and a great family, husband, wife, whatever. And they don't need to be obsessive, and that makes them happy, right? And for them, like, you need to study the people that inspire you to be a good, do this, be a good parent, do this, that, whatever. And so I think you have to understand, right, who you are. But I think that's so important because there's a lot of people, to kind of get back to where I was going with this. There's just so many people who are confused on how to manage responsibility and pressure and on the heavy schedule, to be honest. And I think we all want to be great for a lot of reasons. I think we all have certain things that drive us to want us to be great. But I think at the end of the day, you have to know who you are and know who to listen to. So I think that's awesome. The other thing I'll end on this question on that. Thank you for giving us 2 people in volleyball. That volleyball players, because you know what the typical answer is, like, right? Like LeBron, like, and no disrespect to anybody that's ever answered that on the show, because I know somebody's watching. Like, dude, I answer LeBron, but like LeBron is like the typical answer. Like, I want that. Like, let's dig and find somebody that these kids don't know yet. Let's find it. So let's get back to let's kind of move on to AP. So you get to AP. When you're coaching, and the bar at AP is already here, right? It's really, really high. As we mentioned, Boz built and ran a great program. Not sure what it looked like before him, but during his 12 years, it looked good, right?
Yes.
So my question is, to piggyback off of that, is not only how do you sustain the level of success at a place like this, but now how do you raise it? And to just piggyback before you answer that, you guys had a great season last year, but there seems to be a little hunger for even more, right? Like, who doesn't want to win that next game? Everybody should want to win that next game. I've said that to the girls a million times. How do you do it? How do you win the next game in that tournament? How do you raise the level of success at a place?
So, like you said, there's always been high expectations there. But we've always seemed to find our stopping point at regionals. It's always been regionals.
So that's your next push.
Yeah, it's getting out of regionals to make it to the start of states. When you get into regionals, you're playing teams like Northville, Bedford, where the girls are a lot bigger. We don't have someone that's 6 foot on a roster. Northville probably had 4, 5, 6,
there was some
where they're monsters, and they have girls that are sophomores, juniors, getting ready to commit to play Division I volleyball in 2 years or a year.
Right.
So, that is kind of a struggle where I don't know if we're necessarily ever going to find that, where we have 10 girls coming in that are over 5, even 5'9", 5'10" for us. It's like,
but that's like us in football, like praying for like 3 280-pound offensive linemen. Like, could it happen? I mean, never say never, but like, is it likely?
So, and I think that's something I'm learning too, is like how what do we need to do to get past that? If I'm not going to see it, because I know in the end of the day, I'm not going to have 5, 6 foot girls walk into my gym when it comes August 7th for tryouts. Like, so how am I going to make it work without that? And this year, like when we went on to play Northville in regional finals, we did our best to kind of just focus on what are we good at? Not necessarily where are we lacking, but what are we good at? Where can we challenge someone? And obviously they're a phenomenal team. They went to play in the state finals against Marion.
They were very good.
Phenomenal.
Very,
but
100%.
At that point, it was what can we do? And I think it's going to continue to be that is what can we do maybe as a smaller team in regards to height? What can we do to better ourselves and to challenge other people? Can we just keep focusing on what we're good at and make it great? So it's not just like, oh, hey, we're really good at ball placement. Well, let's be great. Let's be perfectionists at ball placement. So that way it's like, this is what, they can expect as well. So
that makes sense.
Just trying to figure that out. And again, like I said, it's something I'm still learning because I don't know if we're ever going to have that year where we have a big group of girls walk in that are really tall and athletic. But I have to say we have a phenomenal group of kids, and they know that they're maybe not the tallest group in the gym, but they work the hardest.
They do.
They are so hard working.
Definitely.
I mean, we've had, we started in, what was it, May or April? May. We started with
beginning of May.
Performance training, which was something that, you said, how do you want to make it even better? Performance training, 100%.
We have too. Not to toot horns or anything, but humbly, like we critiqued some of the things that we did last year, and we left the things that we thought were very productive.
Yeah.
And we took a few things and we either elevated them or we just got rid of them and replaced them. And I think you need to do that with anything.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think, so 2 things I was going to piggyback was, I do think there's 2 things that potentially help close that gap too. Because you never want to just accept it, right? Like, I'm just never going to beat Northville. Like, you want to say, how can I figure out a way to close that gap?
Yeah.
And I think the 2 things is that I think the more the girls have the experience, and a big handful of them with passion and travel, I think that experience, it helps close the gap. Because while Northville might have a few of them too, obviously, not all of them, right? And I think that, and then you never know, somebody that, the thing about travel ball and different things, somebody that necessarily was looking okay or decent, gets some extra reps like that, and you could see the type of development out of certain kids that you didn't even think was going to happen. And then it's like, Caitlin's one of them.
Yeah.
Kaitlin is getting and I know she watches too sometimes, so shout out. I know she follows on Instagram and whatnot, but she's one who jumps out of the gym now compared to the first year she was working in there. Right. And Coach Poe and I have talked about that, how there's 2 or 3 girls at minimum who we notice athletically this year are just, whether it's from the season, from all of this, the season getting older, right? That always matters. A freshman to a sophomore to a junior, that always obviously develops. And then just that experience. Some of those girls who are playing passion, they're getting you're starting to notice in usually it's like you notice the training and then you see it on the court. But then I'm noticing okay, some of these girls that are playing passion are jumping out of the gym now. We're adding layers to the box jumps that I didn't even think or different things. That's oh, you guys are balling out here.
And that is a big part. Is club is so,
I think that closes
and club
the gap
is growing now too, where it's instead of kids starting in 6th grade, or instead of starting in middle school,
right?
Legacy Volleyball Club, they are typically one of the top in the nation. They have
Legacy
teams
does
for
a lot.
10U. I mean, they have kids starting that are so little and tiny.
And Level Up has actually, here in Monroe, Level Up has started doing, they've started to expand their volleyball a bit.
Yes, a lot more youth. So, and that's one thing we're looking to do this year too, is work a lot more with the middle school where,
that's big.
We're over there, they're coming to games, we're practicing with them, doing stuff like that to get them excited.
Closes the gap too. The younger you catch them and build them. I know you guys have ran a successful youth camp. That's how you close a gap. Successful youth camps bring the kids in to build the bond, the relationships, but also just to learn.
Yes.
I just had a bunch of they were in 3rd grade. They came to sports performance training yesterday. And I say coaches are going to be so lucky when 3rd graders are doing squats and learning how to do squats.
That's great.
And just body weight squats, but just learning where to put their feet, how to drop, how to, all them different things. I'm like, man, 7th, 8th grade, you guys are going to be rock stars in the weight room. And I think the younger you build it, the better. And then the last thing I was going to say, just to close off on that, was just the training. I think, obviously I'm confident in what we do, but I think the more we improve vertical, first step speed, some of these little athletic intangibles that I think close the gap. And I say this humbly, but I don't think everybody is doing the extent of training that we do. And I'm blessed to have like OTA on my side, and shout out to Chris, and them guys will literally like reach out in an hour if I have a question or if I want to implement something and they think yes or no. But these guys are, but I think a lot of it's just hit the weight room and then we're going to go to practice. And there's not that translation to power, change of direction, quickness. And I think that stuff really does. I think it does matter. And I think several people on the team last year saw that too.
100%. And I know we've talked about too, lack of injuries. We had one rolled ankle at the beginning of the season. I think that was about it. So, nothing where it was super major, where it was, career ending. So that was beyond helpful, because typically, honestly, every year I've heard someone, injuries. And not just like at Allen Park, but, anywhere that someone tears an ACL. Someone, whatever it is. So
that's got to be a big one in volleyball.
Yeah, ACL.
Knees got to be the big one in volleyball.
So we were really lucky not to have that last year, but I know we were talking about that group of kids. We've had a lot of consistency too with a small group, and with the group that does show up, that has been coming since May, even when they were playing travel volleyball.
After practice, before practice.
Yeah. And then if I asked them to stay later, they would stay later.
They would too.
Yeah. And the freshmen, it's always incredible to see that change from when we started in May. It's kind of like the 5 girls. They're always there.
Right.
And then when it hits June, when they're kind of able to come after they technically become freshmen.
Right.
It's great to see and have that big number, because sometimes last year was another one where I was like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of kids in the gym. And we said the same thing this year. Whoa, I was not expecting there to be
first day I was
20
shocked.
or 30 kids.
We're
expecting maybe 10.
We got to switch this up a little bit today on what we were going to do.
So that has been great too. And that's something I hope, that I know will continue. And I think having that and going to the middle school, and like you said, for us it's going to be bridging that gap. Maybe it's not going to be I expect to go out and beat all these teams next year.
Right. Might not be 1 year.
It might not be 2. It might not be 3. I don't know when it's going to be, but
it's a build.
It's definitely a build, and kind of just taking those small steps where we can. Is important, because
and sustaining where you're at. Right? Being proud of like making it to regionals and getting knocked there is not a joke though. Like 100%. You are the real deal just to make it to
and I was
nobody can ever take
there's
that
only
away.
Been a few times where Allen Park has made it to regional finals. So, and one of those was last year. I think there was maybe 3 or 4 other times. Yeah, it was a great
It was run. A lot of fun.
It was so much fun.
It was.
We played Etzel for I think 5 times last year. And that was a big success, was beating them every single time. Me and Poe have talked, it's easy to beat someone, once or twice.
Even twice can be a little bit.
Yeah. Going in that 3rd time, and shout out to them too, because a phenomenal group, a phenomenal coach running that program. Which has been a big turnaround for Etzel, because they,
I think I seen you guys play them once or twice, and it was highly competitive.
Yeah, very competitive, very so competitive. Fun. But we, with the training and that aspect too, we were able to stick around for 4 matches, 5 matches when we played Woodhaven. We were able to do that too. So that has been awesome.
And a lot of that too, if I'm being honest though, a lot of that's because the girls do show up to everything and they work hard, because we don't pack our sessions full of conditioning. That's just built into our, we do the girls, the who let the dog out drill, right? Where they run at the end, 3 girls chase one and they run. That's the longest sprint drill we do ever. And that we do that once every 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
And they're so particular with how they're doing stuff too. Exactly.
Yes.
They show up and, they're not afraid to ask questions, or why does this not feel right? Or
100%.
This doesn't look right or something. So that's a big part too, is they're not just showing up and doing the motions. They're showing up, they're doing it correctly. They're asking questions. So it's been good to see that growth too.
And one thing we're looking for too this year, even more so than last year, and I told them this at the beginning, one of the changes we're going to make slightly is we're looking to get more competitive in our training sessions. And at the end of our training last year, we kind of made that switch. We were doing, there's pictures all over my phone and videos of the girls doing all types of competitive drills.
Yeah.
So we started to get there, and then we hit the season. And then we came back, and it was kind of made aware, like right at the beginning, like even when we only had 5 or 6, we were like, no, we're still going to compete today.
Yeah.
One day we went in there and was like, who can do the most pull-ups?
Yeah.
Somebody's got to be able to do the most pull-ups here. And just putting them in a competitive mindset at practice and at training, I think that really does. That's something I took for football too. Is like everything's got to be, not everything, but a lot of it's got to be competitive.
Yeah.
You got to make it, because when you play a team like Northville, it's going to be highly intense and highly competitive. And that team, and even teams like you guys are, I know that's the team that won, right? But you guys are on a level with, I would say, the top tier teams in volleyball downriver. You guys are on that top tier, and even along the state, I would argue. And I think that's just where you guys are at, right? And what's your hardest challenge coaching today?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think my hardest challenge today has been, I guess, adapting to the way that kids respond nowadays.
Okay. Yeah, definitely elaborate. So we get all types of answers.
Yeah,
on this.
yeah.
This could be like, we get like everything. I would like to hear this.
So I think, and the biggest challenge, I think as it's been a challenge, it's also been a lesson for me, which is kind of like this blessing in disguise. And Chris had told me this before, like you can't, it's different times. You can't probably coach how I coached you back in 16 and 15. So I think that was the biggest challenge for me, was creating like my own persona. And last year was a big learning experience for me.
Definitely.
Doing that and figuring out who I am, but also the way how like our student athletes respond now is that, not everyone, and I know you've talked to this like with Riley, not everyone is going to respond to you being a little bit more aggressive. Everyone's going to respond different. Now there might be kids that love that and that's what gets them going.
Oh yeah.
Or there's kids that completely crumble. And nowadays it's not like you can just say like, well, you're like, that's how I coach and that's what it is.
No more.
There's all of these, and another thing,
because your job could be on the
line exactly. And there are all of these personas and personalities and different people you have to be to maintain that success and to maintain relationships and all of those things, which at first I was like, so against it, pretty much like saying like, well, why should I have to adapt?
I'm just gonna be what I am and do what I do.
Exactly.
Yep.
But I'm coming to find after coaching Allen Park, coaching passion, just like all of our coaches have their own story, all of these kids have their own story.
That's real.
And
that's a great point.
Yeah. So
great point.
And sometimes I had to slow down and think, where was I in these kids' shoes? So for me, maybe
that's huge, coach. For real, that's huge.
Yeah,
because most of us don't do that.
Exactly.
That's
and for me, it was that I was the kid that I was getting signed out of school early to go drive out to Warren to play volleyball. Almost every single day, I would get signed out. 2:15 when it didn't count as an absence.
Right.
I would get called out. My mom would drive me out. I would go. I would have a private lesson. I would have a snack. I'd go to practice. I'd have a break, and then I'd practice with another team. I was leaving the gym probably 9:30. And this was after I was cut from middle school, my 8th grade year. And I was in the gym almost every day making the drive.
Right.
So, but I had to come to understand that that's not everyone.
And
that's like where we talk about like perfecting the details or being obsessed with it. Like at that point, that's where I was.
That's where you were.
But
that's not every.
And
kid.
there are kids that are like that.
You have some girls on the team who 100%, are like that.
And that is where I can relate to them there. But I've also have been learning and figuring out how can I relate to the girls that maybe they aren't obsessed with this and the training and the practice and the hours, but figuring out how can I better meet them at their level and how can I provide for them and be a coach and be a mentor and all of those things. Because at the end of the day, I don't care if you were obsessed with the game or not. I still want you to come back in the gym 2 or 3 years later and say, hey, how can I be involved? Or that's like so important.
That's
so
huge.
It's been the biggest challenge because I was coached a certain way and I played a certain way. And
me too.
And all of these things.
And I'm an old school guy.
Yeah. And
I really am.
And adapting has been difficult, but I've learned so much from that.
You've done it well too. Like I'll give you credit where it's due. Like you, and everybody has learning moments, like all of us, like every single one of us. I mean, I have had my fair share of moments in coaching. I'm gonna just say that. But it happens. That's a huge message. And to piggyback, because on a whole deeper level, I think we as coaches and adults forget that these kids have, and I'm not getting into politics or you know, I'm not, you can't tell me I'm on one side or the other because I'm not getting into all of this right now. But what I will say is this: there is so much there's so much temptation. There's so much different in the world today. There's so much instability in the world today. There's confusion on a lot of different things, on a lot of different levels. Whether it just be our world, the weather, whether it be there's just confusion on everything.
It's no
nobody thinks about, like, you and I didn't have to go through we didn't have to go through a pandemic and then all the garbage that came with the pandemic that affected the kids. Like we didn't have to go through that.
Yeah.
We did as adults, but we didn't as a young high school athlete. So I think, like, sometimes to sit and think, like, what are they going through? Is a level of, like, what did I go through? But then it's also like just being like this world's different. And I had this my world growing up. Now, mine and yours is even slightly different because of how drastically the world has changed in so many ways over the last 20 years, even 10 to 15. You know, I talk about that all the time. I'm like, even 2010 was a lot different than 2015 or
even, like, I was talking to Amelia like 3 years ago.
Oh, big time,
you know, and really that is that pre-COVID area where you did start to see a shift. But like you said, it's looking at that, like, you know, when I was in high school, I didn't have to sit in the house for 2 years.
Yeah,
100%. And learn virtually
and
have my games canceled and have my practices canceled, get COVID tested every single other day. Like that, I never had to do that.
And so you can't really even say, like, how you can't technically say how you would have even reacted as a kid, because you don't know, because you didn't go through it, right? Like, you can say how you think as a kid, I was a kid, so I may have acted, but you don't actually know how that would have. So, like, we as adults have to do our best to try to relate on certain things that, like, we don't even know because we didn't, you know what I mean? So to kind of piggyback off of this, because in a weird way, it's a good time to transition to this subject, because COVID and all that, all what we just talked about kind of comes with, like, you know, the mental health side of things, where we're struggling as a society, student athletes in general, we see professionals step away all the time these days and different things. What is your thoughts on mental health and your advice for student athletes?
Yeah. So on another, you know, thing, talking about the whole mental health thing and the challenges that I've been through, like the way of coaching, it's always kind of been that tough mentality of, like, you know, you do it my way or whatever. So now trying to learn and figure out again, trying to make sure that they know it's important, trying to make sure they know that they're supported, not just seeing someone with their head down and walking away. Instead, you know, addressing it, whether it was one girl with their head down or 5, you got to go address all of them. And
100% great message. Every kid matters.
I think too, just the aspect, and I know you guys talked about this previously with Riley, of just checking in. A lot of these kids think that you just play the coach role. And sometimes I think a lot of people forget that we're also human and, you know, we have jobs or families or do all these other things. And, like, sometimes it's not that we don't care to check in. It's just our minds are going at 100 miles per minute.
100%.
So it's trying to establish that consistency with making sure that you're checking in, and not saying, oh, I'll check in. Like, is that what you want at the beginning of the year? But actually following through. And that was one thing that Riley had said that her coaches hadn't followed through. So that's something that we do, like, especially at Allen Park, almost, I would say, like, every other day. Like, how are you doing today? Awesome. You know, how can we help? What is going on when you feel like something's wrong? What can we do to help you get through it? And some kids are going to respond differently to that as well. Some kids are not going to be
Some kids will close off. Some kids will open right up.
Exactly.
I'm fine. Some
will tell you everything.
Life sucked. Homework was terrible. This, that. I got a C on a test I was supposed to get an A on. Like,
exactly.
And Coach Harris said it too when he was on. Shout out to Coach Harris from Harper Woods. But when he was on, he said, but he said, don't just say like, how you doing? Like, actually care. Like, how you doing?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
he said like, actually, like, you can't just say check in and make it two text messages or real short. Like, actually respond and converse and care about how these kids are doing.
Yeah, and a lot of those things
and I thought that was a great
like
message.
are following up and taking a moment to remember like the previous conversations that you've had, because you know, it's like, well, you forgot what I just told you last week that this happened.
Right.
Like, do you think I just recovered in 5 days? In my head, I'm probably thinking yes, but in their head, it might take them 8, 9, 10 days.
Definitely.
So I think, you know, that has been a big part too of like the whole mental health aspect, is doing it, but following through and making sure that it's meaningful, just like how you were saying.
Right.
And
100%.
making sure that it's true, because a lot of it's so easy to say, hey, how are you?
Too.
But
true.
Exactly.
Deeply caring on a level. No, I agree.
So
great message. So before we continue on, we usually end with like a coach's corner and a couple different things. We got one more question, and it's about the sport in general. This sport seems to be growing pretty rapidly. Why right now? Why is this sport growing, and how do we kind of capitalize on that?
Yeah, so I think again a lot of it is social media, having the phones at the hands. Every club has an Instagram account. I don't think I've seen one without. Yeah, I don't think
Elites and Passion are like both
Michigan
incredible.
Elite, Passion, Legacy,
even our
local ones like Atomic and Pulse, Level Up, Unified. There's so many that have some sort of social media account. So that is, I think that is why it has blasted off, because people have it's so much more accessible.
So is it just something? Okay, so my question is it something where volleyball has outdone everybody at branding its sport? Like, has it outworked football at branding? Or is this something where now that it's just being branded, everybody can see it?
Yeah, and that's where I think we're more like, I don't think we're really necessarily outdoing a bunch of different sports. Yeah, like, but I do think now there's this mark on the map with volleyball that like, you know, it's out there. Because I remember when I was playing club, I got a flyer or something to like go try out for club. Now it's like, at your phone, you're swiping. Oh, there's 10 tryouts in the next 10 days. You better go every single day.
And it's on TVs more often. It's like covered on ESPN more than once. Now I think it used to be like once a year on ESPN.
Yeah, I was
now it's like every day
they're broadcasting the national championship this year, I think on ABC or something.
On ABC, so national televised.
Yeah, it's gonna be huge. So I think just the popularity with the sport is growing in general. And even in like Michigan, like we just had Harper Murray, who graduated from Ann Arbor Skyline, and she's probably going to be the starting OH at Nebraska, which
that's freaking incredible. D1, not even just D1, but
they're
like the D1 program.
The
one
best
of them,
program.
right? Yeah.
So
that's incredible.
I think that has pulled a lot, even just in the last couple of years, because she was the number 1 OH in the entire country.
That's crazy.
And she came from Ann Arbor Skyline. So
I was just about to say, and she's right from our
exactly.
From our area.
So seeing that, I think, has pulled a lot of people, especially the younger girls. It's always good, like how we said, looking up to someone. She's been someone who's like, oh, she's 40 minutes away. Like,
see, that's like a domino effect too, right? Like branding gets better, and the opportunity to work at camps and travel teams improve. Now kids are getting better. Now they're getting more offers. Now it's like the sport grows, right?
Yeah,
it's
and that's like just like what
reaction.
you know you have been trying to do in Monroe too with football, or doing
definitely.
the volleyball camp.
Sports
like
in general,
just having
football is the first footprint.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Having the accessibility to go to camps, or like providing the free opportunity. So you know that was things that weren't. Those, you know, those doesn't really happen. Like there were here and there, you know, some things, or there was a really popular one camp, you know, that everyone would go to. But now there's so many different things, and having an opportunity to, if you wanted to pay whatever amount to go to this camp, or if you wanted to go to a free camp, like there are opportunities.
July 22nd.
Exactly. There are free opportunities. There are all these things coming up where it's so much more available and accessible, and again, posted through social media where kids know. So I think that's been a big part. It's just genuinely growing.
And that's what I think is awesome with like you helping out and doing Passion and everything you're doing. And like that was always my goal here, was like, let me give platforms for everybody. If you are somebody who can afford this, there's a platform for you here in Monroe County or surrounding now, downriver. If you're somebody who can't afford anything, well, I've also put on 3 sports performance camps, and I'm putting on a football camp, and we're putting on a volleyball camp. And so it's like there's opportunities for everybody. You cannot literally sit home. I mean, if you want to go work, like you can come work. And I think
it's there.
Right, it grows the sport.
It is there now. So.
And I love it. I love seeing it. Volleyball is incredible. And I think just to end that question on this, I think every person I talk to says after they've either went to sand volleyball or seen a game or watched, they're like, dude, that sport's nuts. And I'm like, dude, or they watched me post on regionals last year and they're like, dude, that's crazy. And I'm like, yeah, it's literally like the most nuts sport you've ever seen in your life. Like it's chaotic, it's fast, it's athletic, like it is wild. And that's why I love training, because I'm like, this is nuts what you guys do.
It's so fun. They make every aspect, whether it's training, practice, a game, a tournament that we've been in for 8 hours on a Saturday.
Yeah.
I mean, they still work their butts off.
It's all like you guys.
It's good.
I'm going to give an ode to your culture and you guys. You guys have a game day mentality always. And I usually have to preach that with people, like mindset, game day, always be locked. But you guys like naturally throughout this culture now in this program, even the young girls who come in that are just now coming to a session for the first time with us, like they're so locked into the older girls who lead the groups and those different things. It is amazing.
Yeah.
So our coaches corner today, every week we got a message in our coaches corner. I posted this yesterday. This does relate to Allen Park to a degree, and I'll explain how. The underdog has to approach situations differently than those expected to be great. You have to be a step ahead, more cautious and calculated when you're expected to do great things. When you're the underdog, you have a little bit more risk you have a little more freedom at taking risks when you're trying to make that uphill battle. The expected also take more heat because everyone loves to hate the best. So, and I think you have to understand which situation you're in. I think so we just talked about like the game earlier. When you're facing a team that you should beat, you got to be a little more conservative, calculated, play smart, do things, discipline how you're supposed to. When you play a team like Northville, there's a little bit more chaos to it. There's a little more risk you tend to taking big games like that. You tend to throw things, especially in football at least. If you're playing a team that is 10 times better than you or a little better than you, you're like, you know what? Throw the trick plays in there, throw everything. We got to have a turnover too. We need some things to happen. We need to spur chaos, right? So I think knowing, and in life, you got to know, right? If you're the underdog in business and life, there's risks that you have to be willing to take that might blow up. But you got to understand you're on an uphill battle, and it takes those risks and those downfalls at times even to get to the top of the hill. When you're at the top of the hill, everything has to be calculated, thought through. You're not as risky when you're at the top. And the last part of that coach's corner message is you have to understand when you are the best or you're at the top level, you do get attacked on a much higher level. And so I've made that because I feel like you guys are in both positions. You guys are the underdog, but when you get to certain levels, but you're also the favorite, right?
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting position you're in.
Yeah, and
you have to kind of do both.
That is so true, especially like in the Downriver League.
Right.
People hate coming to the multiplex.
I bet.
Especially when you look at Woodhaven in comparison to like gyms. They have this huge gym now with like college stadium seating where like you're far away. In the multiplex, it's like raw, tight, gritty,
right in your face.
It's like everyone's next to you. You're serving, someone's a foot behind you. It's so loud, chaos. You can't think. Like it's chaos, and people despise that. So
hard place to play.
It is,
and the girls have said that.
Yeah, it's a hard place, but it's also their favorite.
But beautiful for the home team.
Yes, like they would much rather play there than elsewhere. Like they love playing there, and that is something that too I think has stood out. Like playing Allen Park volleyball is like a thing.
It's a big time thing.
That name is like, oh, you play Allen Park. You play Allen Park volleyball. Like that has been created, especially through Boz and continuing that. So that has been super important in keeping that. So I totally agree. We're on both ends. We've been there where people hate being in the gym, and we take that 5th set win, but we're also at that point to where when we get to regionals, it's like what do we got to do to get past this? So
let's get chaotic, let's get risky, and let's have fun, and let's just see what happens with it. It's the cool thing about being the underdog, though, to piggyback, is you can have a little more fun.
Yeah.
You can let loose a little. I'm not saying sports aren't fun in general.
Yeah.
But you do got to play a little more under control, a little more, just like I said, a little more like, all right, I know I'm supposed to win this game, so let me do things how I'm a little more disciplined, that type of deal. But yeah, I thought that was a great coach's corner point today. Our student athlete of the week is Rudy Jordan from the Detroit Spartans. He's from Monroe. I don't know his exact stats. He was on the Monroe County Sports Network, plays for the Detroit Spartans youth football team. We didn't have a whole lot of action going on this week in sports, but Rudy did play. And what a name, Rudy Jordan, for football. Like, what a name, man. Great name, Rudy. But again, he scored at Monroe High School, right down the road from his house, plays for the Detroit Spartans youth team. So, and if you want to check out his interview, he's very young, but it was an awesome interview. He explained the game very thoroughly. I thought it was awesome. Check out Monroe County Sports Network on Instagram and Facebook, and you guys can see that interview. Our on this day, so we like to cover something. I thought this one was extremely cool. On this day in 1877, the first ever Wimbledon tournament was played, and it was on grass. I'm not sure how they played tennis on grass.
That's impressive.
But they figured out a way to play tennis on grass. And in 1877, that was the first Wimbledon tournament. I thought,
that's huge.
I always read like 10 or 12 different ones and try to like pick one. And I try to pick the coolest one I can find. And it was a lot of like, this person won MVP or this person. And I'm like, nah, that one.
That's big.
That's big. That's cool.
100%.
I'll be honest, I don't watch tennis. I used to when Andre Agassi and the Williams sisters were playing. I just thought they were so badass. And I thought Andre Agassi was just so detailed. I thought that dude was like Kobe. But in tennis, like he was just never made a mistake. I'm like, how is this guy so damn good at this? Like, but that's our on this day. So, Coach, before we get out of here, we're gonna drop a few links, and then I'm gonna actually have you drop the passion information once again.
Okay.
And again, before we get out of here, I want to just remind you guys that on July 22nd at the Opportunity Center at the ALCC, that's in Monroe. I'm not quite sure on the address, but you can find it on my Facebook and you can find it on the poster that's posted all over. But make sure you guys come on out. Opportunity Center at the ALCC. It's from noon to 3:30. So there's 2 different blocks, 2 different age groups. And make sure you guys come about 15, 20 early or even a little more than that. Make sure you get registered so we can get on time and get started. That's with Coach Brooke and also Coach Riley Eiler, who was on here last 2 shows ago. So Coach Riley and Coach Brooke will be running the volleyball court, and I will be taking a small group into the weight room to go over what they should be learning as far as appropriate workouts or volleyball specific kind of things that will help them right in volleyball. They don't obviously need to be Olympic lifters, and we need to teach them the proper ways to work out as far as this sport goes. So, Coach, it's great to have you on today.
Thank you.
You obviously, I'd love to have you back on. Let's talk right after the season ends.
Okay.
Let's get you back on. We'll do, obviously, most people that watch know that I help you guys out there, and obviously have watched the show. Know you're the head coach there, and we share everything that goes on there, pictures and Instagram stories. And so, believe it or not, there's a lot of people that probably watch the show who have seen our stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
So what I want to say is we'll have you back on to talk about the season, what happened, how it transformed, how it went down, how things developed. But I encourage everybody out here to go watch an Allen Park volleyball game this year, and you can follow their pages. Coach will drop the link here in a second, but go watch a game this fall and early this winter. So they start right around the same time as football season for those wondering. So it's kind of that fall season. But make sure you go catch a game. I'm telling you, I have never been in such an exciting gym for real. And I'm dead serious when I say that. The energy, the community, the energy, it's phenomenal. It's great. Make sure you guys come out and support. You can find Kennedy Health and Wellness on Facebook and Instagram, or KennedyHealthWellness.com. You can find Brain Jerk Entertainment on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Kicking It with Coach K on Facebook and Instagram. And where can we find you, Coach?
Yep. So you can find Allen Park Volleyball on Instagram at Allen Park Volleyball.
Perfect.
Same with us on Facebook, Allen Park Volleyball, if you guys want to catch a game. Our website is allenparksports.com. Definitely recommend coming to a home game, like Coach said, and experiencing that. And then for Passion Volleyball, you can find us at Passion Volleyball Club on Instagram, and we have the same account for Facebook if you look us up as well. And you'll probably see pictures of our girls. You might see me in one of the pictures, so you know you found the right place. But we are having tryouts, and we're offering it open to any competitive high-level 7th through 12th graders that want to play competitive volleyball out of the Downriver area. And it is on July 17th and July 24th from 5 to 7 p.m. at Taylor Sportsplex. So you don't have to go to both tryouts. You can come to either one. We do have a sign-up link on our Facebook page and our Instagram. And our website is passionvolleyballclub.com, so you can take a look there and see all of our information there too.
Perfect. So Coach gave you guys a couple different places where you can find this stuff in case you're looking for information, but that's 1 week from tomorrow.
Yep.
So 1 week from tomorrow, make sure you go stop out, or you have that second day opportunity, as she mentioned. Thanks, Coach, for coming on.
Thank
we
you.
will see you after the fall. Of course,
Sounds
I will
good.
see you on Tuesday. Let's get this damn dead week over with and get back to work. I'm Coach K. Thank you, guys. Thank Coach Brooke for coming on today. At 6:30 p.m., we are on with the Detroit Prowl, and then we will, of course, be back next Sunday at 5 p.m. sharp. Thank you, guys, for tuning in.